Hello, and welcome to Graphic Policy Radio. This is a comics podcast, and this is your host, Ilana Levin. This is the comics podcast for people who want to get closer to hearing about the creative process and work of the people who make the comics they love, especially people who are bringing new and vital queer perspectives to the world of superheroes. Joining me today are some guests I'm really excited to have. They are Brandt and Stein. Brandt and Stein are collectively one cartoonist living in the UK and working in the US. Our big focus today is going to be talking about their latest work for DC and for Marvel's Pride issues. They're best known for their work on the multi-Eisner and GLAAD-nominated book Crowded, which I actually got to speak with the writer about, I don't even know, right when it began, Chrisabella. Crowded is a near-future dystopian buddy comedy about a disaster bisexual who wakes up to find herself the latest victim of a Kickstarter for assassins and the grumpy lesbian she hires as her bodyguard. The pair have also done sequentials and or covers for Marvel, Valiant, Dynamite, and DC. For DC Pride, they're bringing Green Arrow's son, Connor Hawke, who is also Green Arrow. They're bringing him out of the closet and canonizing his asexuality. For Marvel Voices Pride, they've created Sheila Sexton, aka Escapade, and Morgan Red, Marvel's newest trans and transmasc non-binary mutants, respectively. These characters will embark on a high-flying yet intensely personal mission, and that will take them from floating party barges all the way to the mutant nation of Krakoa. And I am very excited for them to be gay and do crime together. So welcome to the show, you guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Whoa, it's perfect.
That's probably the only time we'll sync up quite that much.
Fair enough. It was a pretty straightforward prompt. So how did each of you guys get your start making comics?
Well, together. We've never made a professional comic solo, either of us. We met in university, in fact.
Yes. We tried getting into the art game separately, and when it came to comics, we realized this is too much for one person. When it came to comics, anyway.
Yeah, we knew that if we wanted any shot at being professional anytime soon, that there's no way either of us was either had the wide enough range of skills or the speed to do it all solo. So we decided to team up. We were already a couple, so it made sense.
Well, we do love a super team up in the world of comics. What can I say? What brought you guys into comics as a medium?
I grew up loving them. I think I was reading my first ones at 2 or 3, Asterix and Tintin books from my dad. And while I do still really love them, what really captured me was he had a couple of these really fantastic reprint volumes. It was Superman from the 30s to the 70s and Batman from the 30s to the 70s, which was just black and white. It was this big volume of black and white reprints of key stories from various points, as well as a load of the covers. So between reading them and then the X-Men animated series coming out, I knew that comics in general and superheroes especially was something I really loved.
Whereas I initially wanted to be an animator, but during my first year of university to learn how to do that, I realized I could not hack it. There was far too much repetition of the same very close to each other drawings, and I just didn't have the stamina for it. But I really enjoyed the storyboarding element, and so that seemed to solve really well to transferring over to comics.
As someone who used to draw and actually still does stuff on my own, even the amount of repetition required to make sequential comics is just absolutely killer. You want me to make the face the same at multiple angles when they move?
Yes, consistency is difficult.
Very much so.
What is your process of working together? If somebody just says, let's get started, make us a page.
So
we do break down the pages together.
Yeah. So we'll read through the script. So generally we'll go through, identify what seem to be the key moments from the description. Because, every writer has a very different process for how much information they're putting into each panel description. So we often go through and just kind of highlight the key bits that actually apply to the visuals rather than vibe. And
we also do word counts to see how much dialogue we're going to have to try and fit on the page. And when it comes to laying out thumbnails and the just general shape of the page, we have like filler balloon type things to see the general size so that we know how much space it is we're working with.
Yeah, I mean, so like as far as it goes for the actual layouts, we kind of once we've got an understanding of like, you know, what the word count is and what the visuals are, we kind of break the page down into just panel shapes more or less on instinct, and then start. You know, once we've got the panel shapes, that's when we actually put together what shot we're going to use for each frame. And then it's over to you to pencil.
Yes, I make a big mess, but it's semi-legible.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm the other half of this. It's my job to clean up the mess.
Wow. When you say pencil, do you mean you work on paper or do you mean pencil digitally?
I pencil digitally, Ted inks on paper.
Oh, okay.
I've tried digital inking, and God bless everyone who can make it look good. I can't.
It's too slick for you, isn't it? You don't like the
no
texture of the screen.
There are people out there who can make absolutely incredible looking digital inks. You know, I mean, hell, most of the people who work in superhero comics, but I can't. So yeah, I'm old fashioned pen and paper monkey.
Yeah, there's something very different about the feeling of the material under your hand.
Absolutely. And not only the material under your hand, but the bite of the pen into it. Like, I need a bit of resistance. It's why I kind of like brush inking, but my heart belongs to nibs.
I lost my heart to nibs. I like it. Who are some of the big visual influences on your style?
I do have the animation background, so there's quite a lot of possibly Disney type stuff. Glenn Keane was a big influence growing up. He just did stuff like The Little Mermaid and Tarzan and all that.
And he still did still done design work right the way up to things like Tangled and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So got a few art of Disney books going around on the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely the more widely read of the two of us in comics.
Absolutely.
Which works out well, actually, because I think one of the things that makes what we do interesting is the fact that you're not trying to look like anything else.
Fair, because that means that if you have something that you want us to push more towards, you can say, hey, can you make it look a bit more like that? And I don't have any actual preconceptions of it. So it's like, I can try and push it towards that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we've done things that kind of tend more towards the kind of, you know, classic superhero-y, imminent type vibe. We've done things that tend more towards Asterix. We did a pitch that sadly never went anywhere that was very like kind of rounded kids book. We've done something that we tried having a Witch Hat Atelier vibe. Like, you know, I mean, the key thing is we really try and stay flexible.
Yeah, I can see that you guys have really been part of working on a number of different styles, but I also kind of think like when I was looking at this latest work, I was like, yep, this is from you guys, you know? I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we try to make sure that it's recognizable because like, although he isn't an influence like for style purposes, then we both live in awe of the flexibility of Stuart Immonen. Like, you know, he can draw it in any manner of different styles, and you know it's a Stuart Immonen piece.
I think that's to do with him putting himself into it.
Yeah,
it? So
absolutely.
That's what we try and do. I don't think, if we're having fun with it, you can definitely see that it's us coming through on it, no matter what kind of style we're trying to work in. It helps, I think, that all the expressions are based on us.
Yeah.
So you work on references of each other and stuff?
Yes, quite a lot. It's a lot of photographing and with videos as well. If you want to try and figure out emotion, it's much better to take a video than trying to pose in a certain position that you're wanting, because quite often what you think you're doing is not actually what would happen. So having a video on the phone that you can go through this single frames and see the action and pick out which point you want to put on the page really helps.
It's basically turning me into a scene from John Buscema's How to Draw Comics the Marvel's Way, where he had those kind of sliding scales of too weak to medium to too strong action. Like, yeah, I basically do kind of run through that gamut, and then we pick the frame that actually works.
Huh. Well, one thing I noticed, I've read comics with Connor Hawke in them, although not a ton, but I'm a big Green Arrow person historically. It's a character who I've read a lot of. And my main introduction to him was in like the Phil Hester / Kevin Smith series from back in the early aughts. And I felt like in some ways it was some of the color choices in the uniform, but I felt like this felt like it was from the same planet as those comics, despite having a much more, I don't know, up-to-date and more fluid feel in some ways. So that really worked for me as a continuation of that other character work that is kind of defining, at least if you're a certain age.
Oh, I'm glad. I mean, like, as far as the palette goes, we were given, like, the latest Robin issues, which is where Connor's turned up, and said, like, try and use that as your basis. So, at least in terms of Connor himself. The rest of it was you just to go in ham and it's fun.
I'm excited to see the character return. Whose idea was it to do a Connor Hawke story?
100% our editor Andrea Shea. She got in touch with us last year and said, gave us the basic pitch of, look, we really want to make sure that there's asexual rep in this year's DC Pride because there wasn't any last time round, and we want to correct that. And if you look through all of the history of him, there's a lot of strong textual evidence that Connor is ace. So we want to make it official. Do you want in?
Yes, Andrew gave us quite a packet to like, this is all the evidence I have, and on the desk type thing.
I freaking love it. I mean, as someone who hasn't paid a ton of attention to him outside of his relationship with his dad, I had heard about people having, interpreted the character as ace. And I'm always a big fan of when the publishers make official what fans have been reading into the story for the entire time. I'm not sure that every single person who worked on earlier pages in which we look at them and are like, yep, that guy's ace, had that in mind. I suspect some of them did. But there's something that does still feel important about people being able to say like, no, this is definitely there. And you don't get to tell me that I'm like projecting myself when I say this. At least, I mean, I'm not ace, but like for the queer identities that I have when I see those in characters.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. It was really important. Like, we wanted the words on the page explicitly. And like, it's also why that we've like carefully woven it between the Robin arcs that he's turning up in, because that way they can't say, oh, it's not a hoax. It's not an imaginary story. we can place it exactly where it happens.
I mean, it seems like your character is finding himself in a place where he's been aware of this for a while, but he hasn't really talked to other people about it. Or he certainly hasn't told his mom. The story here is very much about him trying to tell his mom. But is your Connor Hawke someone who's spoken to multiple friends about it by now, or a very select few friends who's spoken to about it?
I mean, like, the way we were tackling him is that, like, the whole death and rebirth thing gave him clarity. Yeah. And it's this thing of that he hadn't kind of ever quite confronted and finally came to think about, like, and so Damien already knew, but that's largely because
that's Damien.
Yeah. They've been working together. So, I mean, we've got him from the dialogue that this is not the first draft of this letter that he's tried to write. And that Damien has been there for at least a couple of them. So, like, I don't think, certainly when I was writing it, the some of the dialogue, it was intended that he's not long realized it about himself, because, I mean, especially because, I tried to write it as much from my experience as possible, and I didn't realize it till I was in my late 20s, and which is partly what the story is all about. Like, explicitly explaining how in a very allosexual and sexualized society, it can be really difficult to figure these things out about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a cool choice that you had to have him be writing this letter where he's like trying to sort of put an explanation of this into words for people who might not understand it. It's a cool tool to use.
Yeah, well, I mean, the letter has a history as well.
Because there's been, there was one particular issue that Andrea sent us where the framing device through the story is another letter to his mother. It was more of a correspondence with that, because she writes back in that. But so it's part of his history that he does write letters to his mother.
Yeah. So we're not aware. Who is his mother? Sarah Moonday Hawke.
Woman who had a short but wonderful affair with Oliver Queen, and then Ollie vanished on them.
I mean, that's one of the things I most associate with Oliver Queen is like having a lot of complicated, messy relationships that he's handled horribly. It's funny. People are like, well, how is he one of your favorite characters? I'm like, I didn't say I wanted him to be my friend. I'm like, because those make for interesting stories. And often the way he fucks up are the very believable ways that look like real people. And it's fascinating soap opera. What do you think? I totally had it in my head that his mom was someone who was more involved with the superhero, supervillain life, but she's actually normal. And so that's kind of interesting too, because her son is definitely, been living a superhero life for a long time.
Well, I think Connor's relationship with his mother is actually fairly straightforward. She's normal, and her son at age 13 volunteered to go live in a monastery. Like, this was not an ordinary kid.
Who does that? Yeah, it's quite. And it seems like you've kind of talked about his archery and stuff like that, and you talk about this in your pages as being a way for him to try to connect with his father, who he did not know when he was little.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that was a really strong theme in, like, the 10 issues or so where he was introduced as a character.
Yeah.
In the homework, like, it was very obvious that he was practicing archery because he was in awe of this father that he'd never met.
And that's really rough. That's a pretty complicated character motivation. DC has this history of having legacy heroes, like characters who take up the mantle of a parent or a mentor or even a person they never met before who they were really inspired by and being that hero. And there was extended periods where Connor Hawke was Green Arrow. Like I saw some of them in JLA and stuff like that. How do you feel about writing and helping to define and in some ways redefine a legacy hero like Connor Hawke?
Well, it was very odd.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was a big honor, but also, like, quite surprising. It was all very new.
You're letting us do this?
Yeah.
I was so relieved to hear that they were actually having...
100%. Like, absolutely.
One of the things I wrote about when you guys and I were first beginning to talk is, when you're writing a legacy superhero, you're always trying to figure out how to distinguish their personality from the earlier version of the character. In some ways, different characters have had an easier job doing that than others to keep their personalities distinctive. Connor Hawke is someone who's never seemed like his dad anyway. But I was trying to sort of distinguish my enthusiasm about them, making a character canonically ace with my also feeling of like, oh, it's really good that Connor's ace because that'll be a cool contrast with his dad, who was like very much not. And, I think as a narrative tool, you're like, how can we make a character who's younger feel really distinct from their predecessor in a meaningful way? But by the same token, I also don't want people to interpret Connor's being ace as something that is a response to his dad's actions, because I know that that's not how we like to talk about our queerness or gender or any of those things either. Do you have any thoughts about that?
It never even occurred to me personally that it could be a reaction to Ollie. Like, that it did come up in a conversation. It was like, oh God, I'd literally never considered that.
No, it's just when we really was like, this just seems like who he is. So it's kind of the thing, like doing the homework, he kind of almost in a way became completely separate from Ollie, even if when he was in the stories, it's like, I'm not focused on Ollie at all.
Yeah.
I'm here to learn about Connor. And
I mean, like, even if you go back all the way to like the opening issues, there's multiple bits within that where he's clearly showing signs of asexuality, but none of it is framed as a reaction to his father. None of it, like he's not angry at his dad for running out on him and his mother. He's not. He doesn't he's not embittered about that. He just even in those really early issues, when he gets the chance, he wants to just connect to Ollie. There's no resentment there. It's just, I want this because it's good, because it'd be good, not because it's compensating for anything and it's the same with his asexuality. It's like, it never reads as a reaction to Ollie. It's literally just like, one of the things, one of the early issues, a beautiful woman hits on him and his response is to not even notice. Like, it genuinely doesn't occur to him. So it's not like, it really isn't a response to Ollie, because he's not going, oh God, I better not be with you in case I turn into my dad. It's just,
I've already got my own roof key, thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really remarkable, and unique for the character that he is someone who doesn't have resentment towards his parents in this kind of scenario. I don't know if this is something where you're like, oh, he kind of learned how to be more at peace with it because of his time in the ashram or what, but it's a pretty unique character note.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be pretty unique in order to volunteer to go live in an ashram at age 13 anyway. So
didn't he go because he had anger issues?
Yeah. So
he has worked through a lot of things.
Yeah.
At the ashram. So
I do love the idea that Ollie's son is more emotionally mature than he is. I think that is.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's a cool contrast to draw between him and his dad. Another cool contrast to draw there is that Connor Hawke isn't white. And there are a lot of comics that have happened. I'm saying this, you're not saying this. There are a lot of comics that have happened in the past where the character, if you were unfamiliar with them, you would probably assume that this was a white person. So I was really excited. I love how you're drawing him. It's really clear that this is not only is this not a white character, but this isn't a white character who's just had a different shade of color put on his skin,
I mean, that's always very important to us. If you're going to do the job, then it behooves you to do it properly, I think. We always try to be as racially sensitive as possible in terms of honoring ethnicities and of characters.
It's not difficult to look up facial structures. I don't understand why some people struggle so much with it.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's very easy to Google, and we found whole reference sheets explicitly talking about what cheek structures do, what eye shapes do for all across the globe. So you can really narrow in on what sort of features will be appropriate and accurate, so that people who share that, the ethnicity with the character can look at them and go, they're like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important for character design everything about it is you should have this be clearly a person of color. This is good for the character design and all of that. Actually, speaking of which, is his costume coming from the Robin comics, or did you guys help design his costume?
No, that's from the Robin comics.
The one thing we did do was add an arm bracer because
he wasn't using a bow in that.
No, he we're the ones who gave him his bow back for the first time since he came. So we added the arm bracer for archery purposes.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good outfit design. I like it. What are your thoughts about? I mean, obviously he was paired up with Damian Wayne as a character to hang out with by the folks who are working on the Damian Wayne series. But what are your thoughts about them as a team?
I find them quite fun.
Yeah, they're both even though neither of them are angry about it, both of them have daddy issues. And so it becomes some quite an interesting pair.
They also have a very certain type of humor because they're both the straight man.
Yeah,
which
that's true.
Which you end up having some very interesting. You could have interesting back and forth with that.
Yeah. Also, it's it's a really good pairing because they're both legacy characters who are, you know, at least almost as good as their mentors in some respects, and potentially better in others. So there's they do have a lot in common.
I don't know how they're handling chronology in this, and so this might be completely off, but I feel like Connor is older than Damien, and so I think it's kind of cool for Damien to have a mentor who's like a young person and is well balanced in the ways that Connor is. But is that accurate to how you guys are reading the ages?
Yeah, like I don't quote me because we're not certain, but I believe Damien's somewhere around 14 and Connor's like late teens, early 20s. So
yeah, I mean, I think that anytime one of the Bat Kids gets to spend quality time with someone who's not a complete wreck, or Dick Grayson as the alternative, it's probably good for their emotional growth. So go team.
Absolutely.
The name of the story that you have is called Think of Me, and it takes place in a theater. And so my brain was kind of like, it's Phantom of the Opera. What made you guys choose that particular song and play as the setting for the fight?
Well, the setting came first, and then I went through, we were having trouble thinking of a title.
Specifically, the villain came first.
Yes.
Then the setting. As a result,
because it's like, what can you steal? What musicals and stuff have something that'd be worth stealing?
It's like, oh, the Phantom, that has a very famous chandelier.
So you talk to me about the choice of using Music Master. I think it works on a metaphorical level with this story so well. But like, yeah, tell me how you chose that as the villain.
We just love him.
Yeah, like, because I mean, before any of the writing got done, like we were batting around concepts like, oh, maybe it could be Merlin, or none of them felt right at all. And then I would love to tell you that it was completely on purpose, but the metaphor came out of Music Meister and it works really, really well, but that it wasn't intentional from the start, at least consciously. But it's just, we're really big fans of Batman Brave and the Bold.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it worked because it feels like, Connor Hawke like puts in his earplug so he doesn't get brain controlled by Music Master. And I kind of view that as a metaphor for deciding to block out heteronormativity. Like everybody is being conducted into this big orchestra where they're going to be hearing this one song and expected to react to it in a certain way. And Connor has decided, like, no, I'm actually not going to let this music shape me. I'm going to do my own thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, that's what the letter, explicitly goes into. That, if you are asexual,
it's not even so much that you're necessarily choosing to block it out. Is in some cases it's the case of that you can't even hear it.
Yeah.
You're not even aware that,
you're
not hearing the same things other people are.
Exactly. And so, sometimes you have to then like take that moment of control to just not focus on the world around you and hear what's within you.
That's really powerful. And Music Master's costume is really cool here.
Oh, that was fun to design.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, it's like it's basically a phantomized version of his costume from Brave and the Bold.
The sunglasses with the musical note thing just freaking killed me. A lot of fun.
I know the fact that we got to do that is great. 'Cause when he popped up in Brave and the Bold, it's a great design, and being played by Neil Patrick Harris as well. It was so much fun. So we did try and like make him look in this kind of like he's being played by NPH as well.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. I see it. So it's so cool that this was included in that collection. The DC Pride. I have not been able to get my hands on a preview copy of it, so I've not been able to look at the other stories. But it looks like a really promising collection in terms of the diversity of what it's covering and some of the characters that they will be including. Do you mind sharing some of the other stuff folks will be able to see in the comic?
I mean, yeah,
I know Nubia's got a story.
yeah, there's a really good one from Nubia. Got both Tim Drake and John Kent in separate stories.
Nice.
Which is fantastic. And
Was it Poison Ivy and a Harley Quinn one, right?
yep, and Jackson Hyde, the soon-to-be Aquaman.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. You know, I'm excited that Jackson Hyde is going to be Aquaman, but I've never read a darn thing with the guy. So I think that this issue would be a good introduction for folks who maybe haven't seen some of these character stories before, and for whom, like myself, a character being queer, it's going to make me more likely to want to read their book. So I've been reading Nubia. We actually had Stephanie Williams on earlier to talk about Nubia. Nubia is wonderful, but putting a character in a Pride issue is definitely a shortcut for getting me to be like, oh yeah, maybe I'll check out their book.
Yeah, I mean, like, I absolutely adore Jackson, so can't recommend enough. What the stuff that's been going on with Jackson from the from the Kelly Sue run onwards, it's all just been golden. It really has. And the final piece in there in the book is the Kevin Conroy, Jay Bone, and Aditya Bidikar story, Finding Batman, which really knocked me on my ass. It's so good, like really powerful.
For folks who don't know, Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman, will always be the voice of Batman, is the Batman for me. And he's gay, and he's writing a Batman story in the comic.
Yes, it's not a Batman story. It's a story about his relationship with Batman specifically. And
it's autobiographical, right?
Yeah. It's the story of how he got the job on Batman the Animated Series, and
what it was like being a young gay out actor.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything, but yeah, it's a really powerful personal piece about what his experiences meant to him and did to him, and how that enabled him to become Batman.
Cool. Yeah. No, he's someone I've always wanted to know more about, because his acting has been so influential. And then I found out he was gay, and I'm like, I extra bonus care now. So I love voice actors because I love animation. I really appreciate their work, and I'm excited to see that getting highlighted by DC itself.
It's such a good story, and a really perfect way to end this issue of DC Pride, because it's the ultimate legacy, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also want to hop over to talk at least a little bit about your work on the Marvel Pride edition. I don't have a review copy of that, so I've only sort of seen the preview page that was released about Escapade. But I am really excited about, actually having a transmutant where there've always been transmutants, but like a character who they're like really going to be highlighting as a transmutant, especially during the time of Krakoa, or two transmutants. They're non-binary, BFF Morgan Red seems to be like the guy behind the desk, quote unquote, for Escapade.
Yeah, pretty much.
What can you tell me about working on this book?
It was a lot of fun. Definitely. I enjoyed working on the character designs.
Yeah, because it was one of those just really lucky coincidences where we, were planning on finishing our work for DC Pride at the end of March, and then we had plans for May, and Sarah Brunstad at Marvel just got in touch and said, "Hey, are you busy in April?" And no, so
coincidentally,
it's really lucky, and then finding out that Charlie Jane Anders was writing it was definite plus.
Yeah, no, she's really impressive. And having, a trans character by a trans writer is, again, a really smart way to do it. In the interview that I saw with Charlie Jane Anders about Escapade, she spoke, and this is on the Marvel website, about the character not necessarily having a ton of trust for the existing mutant community on Krakoa, which I think is a really nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, Sheila's not big on authority in any flavor. And as far as she's concerned, mutants have gone from underdogs to cops. So there's a definite, there's a definite flavor of, I'm not so sure about this.
I don't like what you've been doing.
Yeah.
And to me, I also sort of would have imagined that there'd be a sort of cynicism that, like, you know, even in a community of marginalized people, there is still going to feel like there's a hierarchy of who is accepted, whose needs are prioritized. And her life experience may indicate that that has not necessarily been trans women who've been included in that.
Oh, 100%. Though, the story isn't ever explicitly saying that she's expecting them to be, transphobic or anything like that. But yeah, she does have a very healthy distrust of the way Krakoa works and exactly what it is they're intending.
Which is great. Like, this is really a good timing for that story to enter the Krakoan story, you know? I mean, New Mutants has been touching on that. There's been other comics issues in the Krakoan age of Marvel that have, but I like seeing a fresh voice leaning into it. What's also fresh are her shoes. Talk to me about Escapade's shoes.
They're your shoes.
They're my shoes. They're just a different color. I have a pair of boots like that. They don't have the propulsion system on them, but I do have those boots.
That's what I want to hear more about. So yeah, she's got propulsion shoes. Unfortunately, none of the rest of us do. But tell me about how that works. I don't mean like literally. I don't need to Star Trek the physics of it, but like, what's the significance of that as a tool for her?
Well, she doesn't really like using her mutant superpower, so she's more of a scavenger of parts.
Yeah, exactly. Like, her and Morgan basically like raid old bits of tech where they can to, or, devices from a villain or all this sort of stuff and build their own equipment. So she's basically got some cast off repulsors in her shoes and her gloves, and she's got, a variety of gadgets and things.
Like gravity dye.
Yeah, like all that sort of stuff that come out of her tool belt, which isn't a Batman utility belt. It is a literal tool belt, because it's all about practicality.
Talk to me more about the design for her outfit in general.
Well, one of our editors, I think, had the idea for the actual jumpsuit.
Yeah.
But we had the collar, and we said the jacket should be a cropped, like, moto jacket type thing.
Yeah, because originally there was
thinking more trench coat.
Yeah, murmurs of trench coat or similar length, but
again, practicality. If you've got a load of pockets, you want to get to them.
So, and also, trench coat over belt, not always a great silhouette. So,
I can speak about that personally from my own struggles and experiences. So I think it works really well like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything about her was designed to practicality because she's, they're not rich. Neither of them are rich. They're not well connected, and neither of them have mutant powers that they want to rely on. So it's a matter of like practical, functional, and the best things they can scavenge.
I mean, can you talk about like why does Escapade not want to rely on her power?
Well, yeah, because the power is out there, which is it's the very abstract thing of she can switch with other people, but not like, so it could be as little as like place, or it could.
All right, have your shoes now.
Yeah, or it could go all the way up to I have your life for the next 2 hours. Like, where people will acknowledge me as you and things like that.
So it's a weird type of reality warping.
Yeah, but then
for a brief time.
The problem is that like that's such a broad power and a broad scope that she doesn't want to rely on it, because doctrine of unintended consequences being what it is, there's a lot that can go wrong with it.
Yeah, it's like a black bolt kind of thing where maybe it's too powerful to use sometimes.
Yeah, or like it's also like a case of, what if you miss and you don't quite get the effect you were hoping for? That's the other problem. So, yeah, her and Morgan, they're both fairly new to this and definitely like untrained. So it makes total sense that they'd want to rely on things that they can tinker with and trust over powers that they don't have a brilliant system to like tame yet.
Yeah. Well, definitely a lot of room for growth, you know. When Steve Orlando and Stephen Byrne co-created Somnus, a new gay mutant for the Marvel Pantheon, who's in last year, if I'm not mistaken's Pride issue, we were just so excited to see that he was able to continue writing the character in the new series that he was going to be doing. Obviously, that kind of thing is one of the key steps towards getting newly introduced characters to really stick around. I don't know. Do we have any sense if there's of where Escapade might be showing up next? Even if it's just having a drink at the Green Lagoon?
Oh no, she's going to be like fully in, like
New mutants.
Moon Mutants.
Moon mutants, yes.
Yeah. She's going to have like an explicit arc within New Mutants, 31 to 33, I believe, which Charlie Jane is writing. And then as far as I know, I mean, again, this is, don't quote me, but I'm given to understand she'll be sticking around with the team after that.
I'm so excited, you guys. I love to hear that. And, you know, for anyone who hasn't been reading the New Mutant series, like the writer on it is non-binary. There's lots of queer characters in it. And it's a really good book that's had a lot of good artists working on it. This seems like a really good place for the character to go.
Yeah. I mean, especially when like once people read exactly what's going on in Escapade's 20-page introduction, then it will become very obvious why New Mutants is a really good fit.
Ooh, 20 pages is a lot too. That's cool.
Oh yeah, like it's a big introduction because there's quite a lot to get through in terms of like establishing character and powers and motivations and all that. Like, so yeah, no, it's a full
issue's worth.
Yeah, it's a full issue's worth of story.
Wow. That's a lot of space to be able to build from. I'm glad you guys were able to do that.
So are we.
Do you have any other thoughts about working on that character, or your feelings about working on a mutant comic?
I mean, we hadn't done mutants before, so that was nice.
Yeah, that was because
we'd all been out of Avengers Office in the few bits we'd done for previously. So is that? I mean, that in itself was very nice.
I love Hibbert.
Yeah,
Hibbert is their liberated flying turtle.
Yes, tell me about their liberated flying turtle.
Well, they stole them from a lab, right?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah, so they've just got a pet little turtle with wings.
We're strongly pulling
jealous.
for him to be. We're strongly pulling for him to be the new Jeff the Land Shark, because people went nuts over Jeff, and I really want them to feel that same sort of connection to Hibbert, because Hibbert's great.
I love a good pet. Another little thing in the sample pages that were released, or they seem to have a poster of Your Queen and Mine, Kate Pryde, in her classic 80s bomber jacket, turning and saying to the camera, Professor Xavier is a jerk, except the word bubble is blanked out. I truly feel in my heart that these are characters who would feel that and want that poster on their walls.
I mean, that was definitely the intent. I don't know if that's going to survive to final print or not. That was still under discussion by the time we were done. So
you hand inked every single one of them, dang it.
Yeah, but so I don't want to get people's hopes up too much, because it was under discussion by the time we were done. As to
be clear, I'm getting this from Marvel's website, so I'm not saying anything. But it's from May. But so I'm not speaking out of class, is what I'm saying.
No,
that's the one that went up. We just we don't know if that's the one that's going to print.
Exactly. So we just want to prepare people, because if it is there, then that's awesome. If it isn't, then we're sorry.
Yeah, we were quite surprised. Those were the pages that got put into the preview stuff. It's like, I thought they were going to change that.
Yeah, but then I mean,
maybe they changed their mind back.
Exactly. It was a fluid discussion, so who knows? All that sort of stuff's it's the post, all the editing in post stuff that by that point, we weren't really a party to. Our part was
interesting.
Our part was done at that point.
Interesting. But, this is the panel is such an important moment in X-Men for someone calling Professor out on his shit. Even if he wasn't completely wrong in his decision in there, it's very much like a good observation in general. And I love having it be Kitty Pryde, who is bi, even if we can't always say that, but it's just a fact. Are there anything else you guys want to talk about with Marvel's Voices?
I'm very excited for everyone to see it, and also very excited to see the issue fully, because
we haven't seen it yet.
We have not seen it yet. And the list of stories now looks really cool.
Well, these issues are a lot of fun. I think they're a good opportunity for fans to check out queer characters and get into books that have them, and hopefully encourage them to have books that feature them if they are not featured in it yet, and support queer creators who are making it. It's not, I don't know if this time everybody who worked on the issues is queer themselves. That hasn't always been true in the past, but they usually at least have a lot of queer talent on them. So what else do you guys have in the works coming up?
Nothing we can officially talk about, unfortunately. It's the nature of comics. So it's one giant pile of NDAs for so many people. So the main thing we're doing this year will take us to the end of the year, but we probably won't be able to talk about it till around then, which sucks ass, because
it was making us so lazy. It was like,
I know.
Yeah, we've definitely got something happening. Yeah. Sure you do.
Yeah,
we do. We really do. And it's just,
when you have that out, I'd love to have you guys back to talk about it, because it's a pleasure talking with you guys. And I think you have such a cool look and feel to your art. If I had to describe it, I feel like you guys really thread the needle between a style that appeals to folks like me who grew up with positive associations with Bronze Age art, but also have a modern look and feel to it that younger people, may connect to more, and also has the sort of really bold classic cartoon influence from things like Batman Brave and the Bold.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So
your best.
pleasing to across the generations, not to stereotype what age of people likes what, but you do sort of see some tendencies there. And I think that you guys are great at doing something that'll appeal to them all. So keep it up. So tell our listeners, what's the best place for your folks to keep it up with your work?
Well, we have the Brandt Stein email, which is email's website. Yeah. brandtandstein.com.
Yeah.
So we need to update that.
I mean, there's not much we can update it with, really.
We still haven't put the Red Sonja stuff
Yeah,
up.
we have.
Have we?
Yeah. I'm on top of it.
I'm not.
No. So on Brandt Stein, we've got it's more a professional website for editors to look at, because it's got lists of exactly what we've done. It's got
snippets of
samples of sequentials and covers, things like that. So I mean, people are more than welcome to go look, but there's not a lot there for a casual viewer in that way. Mostly just find us on Twitter. Well, me on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. I'm there sometimes.
What's your account there?
At 10_bandits.
I love it. Oh, what does that mean, by the way?
It's who I am, according to one person. Because
a dentist.
A long time ago, I got into a car accident, and as part of doing my insurance stuff, then in order to claim for the whiplash that I got, I had to be checked out by a court-approved doctor, not my own one. Fine. So made an appointment, and that was all good. And then when it was a day or two before the appointment, the receptionist called up to confirm and said, "Hello, here's Mr. 10 Bandits." I was like, "Right, there we go. That's my name sorted."
Okay, I like it. As good of an origin story for a superheroic name as we can come. As for me, I'm on Twitter a little bit too much at ELANA_Brooklyn. This is Graphic Policy Radio. We will have more interviews with folks working on awesome work for Pride Month. We have an upcoming roundtable about the work of George Perez coming up. couple interviews with some really exciting comics creators who will be joining me as well. And so please subscribe. I'm also putting out a new thing where I really need to have more Apple iTunes reviews. And if you do an iTunes review and you rank us and write a little blurb about what you like about the show for them and send me a note, I will do a special thank you for you on the podcast. And if you have a request for me to give you a 1-minute review of some piece of media that you like, comic, movie, whatever, if there's something that I've seen, I will grant you that bonus review. So guys, get on it. Get me those iTunes reviews, because it's really a key way for us to help other people find the podcast. And I've been doing it since 2012, my friends. And as we'd like to say, keep it geeky.
We are coming back for the third year in a row with our extremely cool speculative anthology of all LGBTQ stories by queer and trans authors. It is called Decoded Pride. It's at decodedpride.com. And you can pick up a subscription today for only $14.99. Or if you go to any of our social media sites on Instagram or Twitter at Bitches on Comics, or if you follow us on Patreon or support us over there on Patreon, we have discount codes already all plugged in for you, and you can get it for even cheaper. So go check those out. But right now you can get it for $14.99 at decodedpride.com. And Sarah, what is Decoded? What are people going to get?
You have stories of comic books. You have stories of horror stories. You have fantasy stories, science fiction, all of the things. You know what speculative fiction is. I don't have to
stuff
tell
that's
you.
just too hard to define.
Genre bending.
What's especially cool is that every story that is not a comic has a piece of art that accompanies it. We hope you'll come support us and all of the amazing creators we're getting to publish this year. We are absolutely ecstatic. Again, join us at decodedpride.com.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.